Ready.
Okay. Jerome, thank you very much for coming and being part of these interviews. I'm particularly excited because you have been here in the past, left, and you've returned.
Yeah.
So you've really got two stories of coming back to the San Geronimo Valley. So we've had now, maybe 12, 13 people we've interviewed so far. It's been a thrill. And people seem to have enjoyed telling their story of how they've got here and beyond that, things that they care about in their life here in the valley. So I'd like you to say your name, where you live right now, and then just get into how you want to talk about your coming to the valley.
All right. My name's Jerome Reuben, and I live in Forest Knolls. How I came to the valley? Well, like many, I guess we all have our story of what brought us here. The thing that brought me to the area initially was, there was a couple things. One, I had met Renee Ponder and Melanie Nathan in New York. I was at an expo. I was publishing some directories. And I had mentioned I was coming out to California to move the business out here, and they suggested, why don't you come to Marin, and so on. So that was in my mind. I know that. But one day I came out for an expo in 1995 in October. I believe it was in October or September of '95. And following the expo, I came out to introduce who we were in San Francisco. The expo was in San Francisco. And the night before I was flying home to New York, I was staying at the airport, and I had a car, and it was about, 7:30 in the evening, something like that. I was resting at the hotel, and I was hungry. I decided to go for dinner. Being the last night, why don't I drive up into San Francisco? So I got on the 101 and drove into the city. And I'm driving on 101. Next thing I know, I'm on Van Ness. Next thing I know, I'm heading towards the Golden Gate Bridge and driving over the bridge.
That's right, yeah.
And as I'm driving over the bridge, I might get emotional about this. I heard an inner voice, and the voice said, "Go home." And I was just driving, and it was very loud, and it was very strong, and I just am driving. I don't know where I'm driving. I'm just driving, and then there was a exit Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. So I get off at Sir Francis Drake, and I just start driving along Sir Francis Drake, and driving, and next thing I know, I'm driving through the valley. It's a bit dark now, and I drive all the way to Point Reyes.
Yeah.
And I wind up at the what is it called? What's the restaurant out there? I forgot the name of the big restaurant. What's the name of the restaurant in Point Reyes?
I know which one you mean. The main one.
The main one.
It escapes me.
Oh no! It has to do with railroad station. Station
Okay.
house.
Station house. That's
Okay,
right.
I get to the station house, and I walk in, and they go, "Oh, we just closed," and they said, "But if you sit at the bar, we'll make you something." So they were really wonderful, and they made me a dinner, and I sat at the bar, and I walked out, and I just looked at the sky and the stars and everything, and I thought, "This is nice." What is? I didn't know what this was about.
Yeah.
Anyway, I left. I came back a month later because I needed to find a place to live.
Yeah.
And I was looking primarily around Mill Valley because I had a connection there,
Yeah,
and so
right.
on. Well, the only place I was able to find eventually was a 2-bedroom apartment across the street from Sir Francis Drake High School on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. And that was the only place that would take me
Yeah.
along with my business. So I moved everything in from New York.
Oh,
And then I set it up there. So it was on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. Well, my business was running, and there was a woman who was my office manager and editor. And she kept saying to me, "You can't live in here anymore. You know, you're living with the business," and so on. So one day she shows up, and she said she lived out in Inverness Park, Kathy. And she came into work one day. She said, "I had stopped at the Lagunitas Deli, and there was this card there for room for rent."
oh,
And it was at Barbara Mulhauser.
yeah.
Did you remember
yeah.
Barbara?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Lagunitas.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
in Lagunitas up on Spring up
Yeah.
there.
At the end of the road.
Right. So I call her up, and it was on a Friday. It was on a Friday, and she said, "Come on over." So I went over there, and I rented the room in the
Yeah.
house. And on Sunday, I mean, I was amazed. On Sunday, I decided to go back out to Lagunitas because it was like I was moving over the hill, and I wasn't really familiar that much with the valley. At the time, there was in Lagunitas, there was a cafe where Artie's is now.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I went out on that Sunday, and I got a cafe, cappuccino, I remember, and I sat outside, and I on the deck, and I was just staring across Sir Francis Drake Boulevard at the beautiful trees and that, and I was looking, and this overwhelming feeling came over me, and I thought to myself, I can die here.
Mm.
And,
Wow.
I never had that thought ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant I found home.
Mm.
It was just
Wow.
a profound, deep, and I went like that. I said,
Wow.
I can die here. And all of a sudden I reach out like this and go, ah, and I look up to the second floor, and in the window it says, "Space for rent." And I go, "Space, what is that?" And I
Look
go
at
up
that.
and I look around, and to make a long story short, eventually we, other than Andy Rader's acupuncture
Yeah,
practice,
yeah.
we wound up renting the entire floor for my business up there. And that was on that Sunday. I go up and I look through the window, and I'm thinking, God, this is an amazing place. And I called up Kathy, and on a Sunday, at first I called the landlord, and he happened to answer the phone on the Sunday. He says, "I'll be right down." And he comes down and he shows me the larger space on the other side. And I'm thinking, this is great. I called Kathy. She happens to be home. I said, I may have found a place for the office. And she says, "I'll be right there." She comes over, she walks through, she looks at me and she mouths, "It's perfect." And that day,
About what year was this?
this was 1 year. Okay, I moved the business January 1st. Was when I officially moved in to let's see, January 1st of '96. So this was
96.
this was 1 year later. This was '97.
Okay. 1997. Okay.
Had to be
I got it.
Had to be '97, 1 year after that. And so that was Sunday. So I shook hands. It was Bill White. Shook hands with Bill, and that next week signed a lease. So moved into there. Moved into Barbara's place, and the story of Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. I mean, so all of a sudden, I'm first living on Sir Francis Drake. My business is on Sir Francis Drake. Eventually, when I moved out from Barbara's, I moved in a little bit on Arroyo for a while, and then I found the cottage on Sir Francis Drake across from the community center. And I moved into this cottage on Sir Francis Drake. I wound up being very involved in the community center
Yeah, right.
for years.
Oh, yeah.
And now I bought a home, and I'm on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard.
You bought a home?
I bought one of the mobile homes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
And now,
didn't realize. Oh,
and now I'm living on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. So there's something, and my Spanish name is Jerónimo, and I'm in the San Jerónimo Valley. So I don't know. It's just a lot of woo-woos, but there's something that brought me here, and then I had to leave, but my heart has always been here, and I always knew I needed to return, and I was able to return.
how long did it take you from the time you left, roughly, to when you had it in your head? But time goes on. Things happen.
I was in my. Oh yeah, no, I left here. The business got knocked out with the .com bust back then. It just, I couldn't survive that.
Yeah.
And eventually I wound up in a number of different situations.
Yeah.
Trying
to make it.
I left here in, I believe it was 2009.
Uh-huh.
I think it was 2009 when I left the valley, and I would say I really, returning, I was living in my vehicle for a few years until I found this house, until I found this place, yeah. So I would say I kind of came back, I don't know, we're in 22 now? I think I came back in 21, not 21, in 20. 20 was...
just the start of the pandemic then?
Just
roughly.
before, in January.
Okay.
In January.
Ah.
I found a good place to park. and I just got my place last September, so I haven't even been in a year. So it was a year ago when I say I really landed here. Living in my vehicle here, it was more I was staying here. I wasn't fully living here.
Yeah.
It's hard to fully live when you're in a vehicle or like that.
Mm.
Yeah. So I finally.
What are you doing now?
I'm playing a lot of music.
Oh.
I'm preparing to do a little bit of a tour, and there's some other ideas that are fermenting in my mind of getting back into the world. I've been out for quite a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really nice being out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
what makes it nice? What happened? Freedom?
It's the freedom, but it's also when you don't have, you really live in the now. I would say there's a whole lot of things. First, there's parts of it that's a tremendous struggle. It's a very challenge to be living in a vehicle or on the streets.
Yeah.
Our culture does not like poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Rules are constantly made. Obstacles are in your way. Facilities, to take a shower, to clean up. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And so in order to get on one's feet, it's hard. There's no landing place. It's just a drop. And so that is a part that's a part that needs to be addressed, and it's rooted in it's a complex issue because there's the physical aspect of it, but then there's the thing of why do those obstacles exist to begin with, and it's basically, like I said, my experience in our hearts we care, I think, in terms of real crisis, but in general, I think people don't care about each other right now. Mm-hmm. I think people care about themselves. We've learned to be materialistic and relate to the world that way. when you said about the joy of being free, of going with whatever arrives, and discerning what path you're going to take, however the paths open up. And when you don't have ties that bind us to something, then much is revealed and offered. And that is a wonderful thing to step into, because you're just living life as it's unfolding without the defining things that keep us a particular way. So, and that's it is real freedom, in the sense of you don't have other responsibilities to maintain other than your own existence. And existing and being aware of what it is, it's a wonderful space to occupy.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. How did you get Riley? What's the story behind Riley?
Well, when I moved to Puerto Rico to run a natural health institute down there, the Ann Wigmore Institute. They asked me to come down and be the director of that, and I did. And I wound up living in this house right on the beach.
Oh.
And the first months, there was an organization called ARF. It was the Animal Rescue Foundation of in that area in Puerto Rico, and they were very connected with the Institute. We used to do fundraisers for them and so on. And they kept on me, like, you want a dog? You want a dog? Why don't you get a dog? And I was saying, no, I can't deal with a dog. Finally, I thought, okay, I'm ready. And I said, I would like some kind of a lab or lab mix, because I'm on the water. I want a water dog. Mm. She says, it doesn't happen that often, but we'll see. She calls me the very next day. She says, I think we got a dog for you. And I said, really? She says, yeah, we got, she says, it's a chocolate lab. And I said, I said, well, I'll check her out. And then she brought me to the house. It was in the backyard of the house. And I walked in, and it was love at first sight. And it was just, that was him. He's Puerto Rican.
He's Puerto Rican.
He's still, yeah. He knows no mas. That's his no mas is a cutoff switch.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for coming. That's a rich, the rich experiences you've had, and pointing you in directions, and so interesting that you come back here. That's fascinating.
Well, yeah, and I have, some very deep friends here, close friends here, and one is Suzanne. Suzanne was interesting. Like in my situation, she knew I had moved in. I guess she knew from Melanie and Renee, and then we became friendly. And she's the one who said to me, "Why don't you come to the community center?" Mm-hmm. She got me onto the, she was the one who brought me into the board. And just other thing, she's been one of those point persons in my life that has brought me and introduced me to different community things and to be involved in. And it's been, and it's been wonderful being here. I mean, I look at it also as my first time, and then this is the second time. And like I said, I don't know. Right now, I'm still coming off of the road, that mentality.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I don't trust the permanence of a situation, because everything was just always impermanent. And so I'm just doing that. I'm still settling in, and there's a big shift going on, but I don't want to lose that wanderlust or that space of holding that space.
Yeah, that's important.
There's something about having the freedom of having no responsibilities or owning stuff. You know, everything I downsized was just to my RV. So I let go of pretty much all the material things and had to let go of everything. I mean, it was a real process.
Yeah.
But being in that space, it's like being naked and totally liberated, and all of a sudden you're deciding that you need to put some clothes on again in order to go back into the world. And that's part of it.
That's part of it.
It's part of it, and the world's not a very kind place. So my only purpose of going back in will be to do some work, service work, you know. Not. So.
Well, that's quite a interesting note to end on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to unfold.
No.
But we'll see. You know.
Well, thank you very much. You and look at Riley. He's just settled in finally, and he's perfectly happy in being a part of this. And he's doing his snooze thing.
Well, this dog's been in every situation you can imagine because he goes into everything. So he's been in nursing homes. He's just he's a pretty amazing dog.
Right now, he's kind of happy that he's got his leash where he can put his chin on it, and that's home, part of home, I think. Oh, yes, you're being talked about. You know it, don't you? Well, thank you very, very much. This is going to be just, what we're doing here, Paul, is going to be dynamite. It really is. Yeah. Everybody's very different. They really are different. And they come back to the valley. And hearing the story is just great. It's just really, I didn't think I'd learned so much. I thought I knew a lot about different people, and I find out there's a whole parts of their lives I don't know anything at all, and others don't either. No. It's in their head, it's in their heart, and sometimes it comes out in the story of
it is,
of coming here. Yeah.
Right, but every home, every thing is right. It's a unique, different story, and when you, like you said, when you sit down and listen to anybody, they have their stories.
You know, Paul, this isn't. You can turn off the camera, but I'm reminded of myself when I came to work at the summer camp, Forest Farm summer camp. When Lee wrote, when I was at the summer camp in upstate New York, Manitou, in the Catskills, Lake Manitou, and Lee, I was a counselor there. Lee was hired as a horse wrangler for Forest Farm summer camp here this one summer. It was recommended by our recreation teacher, who said, "Oh, you're going to be teachers. You ought to consider a summer camp or what." It made good sense, and I was interviewed by this rich lady who flew out from New York. And she had a lot of money, and her goal in life was to bring Puerto Rican children to the United States to experience a camp setting, summer camp. And I was hired, in those days, California was thought of as, really strange. New Yorkers did not think much of California.
What year is that?
That was 1953. And when I got back there, I got teased because of the way I say my R's. Yeah. I got teased a lot about that, and I had to figure that one out. And yet I was accepted, but I was different. I really was different, and and the thing was, I was out so much that when I tanned, I got really dark. I've never been that dark in my life. I don't know what it was about the sun there, but I got really dark, and they commented on that. The counselors commented on it. But the kids, they loved my nature program. That's what I was hired to do nature. And of course, when I got off the rich woman, her name escapes me for a moment, but she gave me money to take the Greyhound to get back there, which I did. And as soon as I got there, I went to the library in New York City. Went right to the library because I didn't know anything about wildlife or plants that I was hired to teach the children about in upstate New York. I didn't know. I knew California. I didn't know anything about New York, upstate in the Catskills. So I did my research. I did exactly what I needed to do in a couple of hours. So I did a good job. Then I went up there and found the camp and met everyone, and they kept teasing. The first thing was my R's. In those days, it was really you were really different.
Where are you from originally?
What's that?
Where are you from originally?
I'm born in Livermore, California.
Oh, okay, so your R's as in the and how about the word roof?
Roof?
A roof.
Roof.
What's on top of a house? A roof.
Right.
Yeah, I used to be made fun of in New York with that, but
With the you know then.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want to jump back for a second when
Yeah.
you were talking about the challenge of or what is the difficulty about going back in to the world, or what did I like about living out? And you said the freedom. I just want to comment also that the difference is doing and being. I think for me, what was happening in my life, I was doing so much. I did do.
Yeah, I remember that about you. That's right.
A lot of accomplishment.
And you knew what to do. Yeah, you were very clear. Yeah.
And what it was, okay, so when everything crashed and all of that, then and I did get back into doing with the Institute and so on, but when everything settled in, I wound up moving in with my parents for 6 or 7 years to take care of them through their last years of their life, prior to coming back here. So I left Puerto Rico and moved in with my parents. After they died, both of them, and I left, then my intention in going on the road, how I did, was actually to accomplish nothing. And that was a real challenge, because the drive to do, and instead of doing, just being, and not having to control, and not having to shape and be engaged in that way that I've been all my life. So I was able to let go of the do and just be. And that was what an intention was to let go of the drive, because that drive also, when we slow down, we see so much more. As like you're driving in the car. I drive now the back roads at like 20 miles an hour in Marin.
Yeah.
When I hit those, like Hicks Valley and the north-south roads, not the east-west. Those you have to drive relatively fast, or you mess everybody up. But when you're on a train and everything's blurry, and all of a sudden you slow down and it just slows down and slows down and slows down, you see everything comes into clarity. And when you are not doing in that sense, you're being, it's the same thing, slowing down where everything is in clarity. And the re-engagement would be to speed that up again. And I think that's part of the challenge is, and I knew I could not re-engage anymore until I am settled in my beingness. You know what I'm, because that's where there's clarity and seeing and balance. I didn't have balance. My life was doing. And in being, one has to really accept themselves without any of the descriptions. I am this, I am this, I am this. Well, take all those thises are off, and then it's just us. And being in this nature, the beauty and depth of the ecology and the nature here, I'm out every day, and it's just embraced me, and I'm able to breathe without the restrictions of the deadlines and the doingness and all of that. I can still now engage, but I'm balanced. I'm in that.
That makes sense.
And it's more, I think it's also more pure, because I don't identify with the doing. When we are something in an action, Those are all things that how we're viewed. You know, I was viewed as a publisher. I played music for years. I was on tour for years in Europe. Everyone knew me as a musician. Okay, when that left, and then I became something else, and then that left, you know, so as those things leave, it's who you are essentially without all that stuff. That's where the real challenges are. And in our culture, we learn so much about the doing and the motivation of doing and the identity with doing, you know, and when you lose all those identities,
What's left?
what's left is something very beautiful, but it's part of, we have to let go of,
Yeah.
and
okay.
that's dying. That's the dying process. That's what dying is about. It's letting go.
Well,
So
thank you very much. And Paul, I'm sure you got some good stuff here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see Paul's furrowed brow there for a minute and thinking ahead.
But
Thank you.
this is a
And
place
Riley,
where
thank you
This
too.
is a place where it happens.